You could have the absolute flawless logic of a supercomputer, right? Like the work ethic of a machine. And you still might get passed over for every single promotion in your career.
Oh, absolutely. It happens all the time.
Right, because we treat professional growth like it's like a brute force math problem.
Hmm.
The default assumption is, well, if I just grind out a 100-hour work week or relentlessly optimize my code, the corner office is just guaranteed.
Right. We think it's just a formula.
Exactly. But the data on who actually makes it to the top, it tells a completely different story.
It shatters that illusion entirely, honestly. We cling to technical skills because, well, they're comfortable. They can be quantified, certified, and tested.
They're safe.
Highly safe.
Yeah.
But according to this massive research conducted by the Carnegie Institute of Technology, even in highly technical fields like engineering, a mere 15% of a person's financial success is actually due to their technical knowledge.
Wait, just 15%?
15%.
That number is just staggering. I mean, that means a massive 85% of your success comes from what they call human engineering.
Yes.
Your personality, your ability to communicate, and your capacity to lead people. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking a hard look at the ultimate shortcut to rapid professional success.
And we really want to dig into how that 85% actually works.
Right. We're pulling the most powerful, actionable strategies from Dale Carnegie's foundational work on human relations, but applying them directly to the modern high-stakes workplace.
Because the modern workplace is exactly where that 85% becomes a matter of professional survival.
It really is.
And to be clear right up front, we aren't talking about manipulation or, playing those sleazy office politics. We are looking at the mechanics of authentic human connection.
Which is so crucial for anyone listening. If your goal is to accelerate your career and lead effectively without causing a trail of resentment, your primary focus just has to shift.
It has to. You can't just rely on the spreadsheets anymore.
So let's unpack this. The first major hurdle we have to clear is understanding why our default approach to dealing with colleagues usually fails so spectacularly.
Yeah, we have this fatal flaw where we prioritize logic over emotion.
Exactly. I like to think of technical skills as the engine of a car, but human engineering, that's the steering wheel.
I love that analogy.
Right. You can have a massive 800 horsepower engine, but if you don't have a steering wheel, you're just going to accelerate straight into a brick wall.
And destroy everything around you.
Exactly.
What's fascinating here is that the underlying mechanism is actually biological. When you approach a colleague purely with cold logic to, say, point out a flaw or push a project, you're essentially speaking a language their brain isn't wired to prioritize in that moment.
Because people are not creatures of logic?
No, not at all. We are creatures of emotion. We are heavily armored with prejudices, pride, and ego.
So when you ignore their pride and just hit them with a spreadsheet proving they are wrong, their brain doesn't process it as helpful data.
Precisely. It processes it as a threat.
It's an amygdala response, right?
It is. Their biological shields go up, and your logical feedback just bounces right off. And the crazy thing is, almost no universities teach this.
Oh, none of them do.
You can get a master's degree in complex technical systems without spending 10 minutes learning how to navigate the complex psychology of the human beings building those systems.
Which brings us to John D. Rockefeller. He built one of the largest fortunes in human history, and he famously stated he would pay more for the ability to deal with people than for any other skill under the sun.
Wow.
Yeah, he viewed it as a tangible, acquirable commodity, just like sugar or coffee, but infinitely more valuable.
And that is the pivotal leap for anyone listening who wants to move from an individual contributor to a leadership role quickly. Your daily metric for success has to transition from managing logistics or code to managing human egos and desires.
Okay, so if logic triggers a defensive response and technical skill isn't enough to lead, what is the actual first step to gaining genuine influence?
Well, the source material argues it requires a complete suspension of our absolute favorite workplace habit.
Which is?
Criticism.
Oh, man. Yeah, the core principle sounds simple enough. Do not criticize, condemn, or complain. Give honest, sincere appreciation instead.
It sounds easy, but it's incredibly hard to practice.
But wait, I have to push back here. Let's look at reality for a second. If my team member is completely bombing a presentation or, formatting a report wrong every single week, I can't just smile and ignore it.
Right, you can't just let the business fail.
Exactly. Doesn't withholding criticism just mean I'm letting bad work slide? Like, how do you actually lead if you can't point out what is broken?
That is the most common objection, and it comes from a misunderstanding of what eliminating criticism actually means. It doesn't mean dropping your standards at all.
Okay, what does it mean then?
It means changing your delivery mechanism. Think about what criticism actually does psychologically. It forces the other person to immediately justify themselves.
It wounds their precious pride.
Exactly. It doesn't permanently change their behavior. It merely breeds a resentment that simmers just below the surface. So the alternative to criticism isn't silence. It's indirect guidance.
Okay, this reminds me of the safety coordinator story from the text.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
Right, so this guy's entire job was to make sure factory workers wore their hard hats on the floor. His default method was pure authority.
Just enforcing the rules.
Yeah, he would spot a violation, march over, point out the rule, and criticize the worker.
And I bet the workers would comply only as long as he was standing right there.
The second he turned his back, the hats came off. It was pure compliance out of fear, laced with intense resentment.
So what did he do to fix it?
He completely flipped his script. The next time he saw workers without their hard hats, he didn't yell. He walked over and gently asked if the hats were uncomfortable.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he asked if the fit was wrong. Then he simply reminded them, in a very pleasant tone, that the rule was designed entirely to protect them from injury. He appealed to their well-being, not his authority.
And the result?
Compliance skyrocketed, and the friction just disappeared.
Because he removed the threat to their ego. He didn't say, "You are breaking my rule." He said, "I want to make sure you are safe."
It's a massive shift.
Another brilliant illustration of this mechanism is the story of Pamela Dunham. She was a supervisor dealing with an employee whose work was so poor that his peers were actively mocking him.
Oh, that's awful. The workplace must have become incredibly toxic.
It was. Now, the standard management playbook there is a harsh performance review, heavy criticism, and putting him on a warning track.
Which probably would have just finalized his failure.
Exactly. Instead, Pamela searched for the microscopic things he was actually doing well. And she didn't just tell him in private, she praised him publicly in front of the very employees who were mocking him.
Wow.
Yeah, she bypassed criticism entirely and used public, honest appreciation.
And the mechanism at play here is just fascinating. When you publicly praise someone's potential or highlight a strength they barely knew they had, you induce a form of positive cognitive dissonance.
The text calls it giving someone a fine reputation to live up to.
Yes. That is a profound psychological lever. People have this deep-seated need for their actions to align with their identity.
Right, so if you publicly shift their identity to, say, detail-oriented genius or invaluable team player,
Their brain will literally force them to work harder to avoid the discomfort of contradicting that new identity.
they will move mountains to ensure they don't disappoint you and lose that fine reputation you've just handed them.
And Pamela's employee completely transformed into a confident, excellent worker, right?
Yeah.
Because she gave him an identity worth defending.
Exactly. Okay, so you've stopped criticizing, you've lowered their defensive shields, but neutrality doesn't equal motivation.
That's the real challenge.
How do you actually get someone to take on a difficult new project or buy into a new company vision?
You have to figure out what they want. And this is brutally difficult because our default setting is to only care about what we want.
Right.
The core principle here is to arouse in the other person an eager want.
The book illustrates this with an incredibly vivid story about the philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson and his son trying to push a calf into a barn.
Oh, I love this story. They made the classic human mistake.
They did. Emerson pushed from behind, the son pulled from the front. They were solely focused on their own desire to get the calf inside.
And the calf, acting exactly like a human being who feels pushed, just stiffened its legs and stubbornly refused to move.
It only cared about what it wanted, which was to stay in the pasture.
Right. And then their Irish maid walks up. She didn't write philosophy, but she understood behavioral mechanics.
Yeah, she just put her finger into the calf's mouth,
Yeah.
let it suckle, and gently let it right into the barn.
She thought entirely about what the calf wanted.
We see that same dynamic constantly in the corporate world. Look at Mike Whidden, the Shell oil salesman mentioned in the text.
What happened with him?
He had a station manager whose location was an absolute disaster, and it was dragging down regional sales. Now, Mike could have played the Emerson role.
He could have nagged, quoted company policy, threatened the manager's contract.
But that's just pushing the calf. It only creates resistance because it's entirely about Mike's quota.
So what did he do?
Mike paused and figured out the manager's actual desire. It wasn't clean floors, it was status. Mike took this manager to visit the newest, top-of-the-line Shell station in the district.
Oh, I see where this is going.
He let the manager soak in the success and the prestige. Then Mike painted a clear picture. By cleaning up his own station, this manager had a direct path to becoming the #1 station in the entire region.
He appealed directly to the manager's ego and ambition.
And the station was spotless the next day.
Unbelievable. You know, Henry Ford called this his ultimate secret of success. He said that if there is any one secret to success, it lies in the ability to get the other person's point of view and see things from their angle as well as your own.
That is the literal definition of workplace buy-in.
It's not about being the loudest voice or having the most authority. It's about being the person who can best articulate how the team's goal fulfills everyone's individual, selfish desires.
It requires a radical shift in perspective from saying, I need you to do this for me, to asking, how can this benefit you?
Let's pressure test this, though. Understanding someone's perspective is fantastic for a calm, one-on-one persuasion scenario.
Sure.
But what about a 5-alarm fire? You are the boss, a massive crisis hits, and the clock is ticking.
The natural instinct is to drop the empathy and just start barking orders.
Exactly. How do you lead a team through a high-pressure challenge without acting like a dictator?
Well, the stress response definitely makes us want to dictate, but the source material provides a mechanism that preserves autonomy even in a crisis. Ask questions instead of giving direct orders, and let the other person feel the idea is theirs.
The example of the manufacturing plant manager facing the impossible rush order perfectly illustrates this.
That's a great one.
The deadline was completely unreasonable. Standard leadership says you call an emergency meeting, announce mandatory overtime, assign tasks, and demand compliance.
Which instantly turns your team into cogs in a machine. They feel zero ownership and maximum resentment.
But this manager called the team together and laid out the entire problem. He gave them the full context. Then, instead of giving a single order, he just asked them questions.
Questions like what?
He asked, is there any way we can adjust our schedules to do this? Does anyone have an idea how we can process this order to meet the deadline?
By doing that, he fundamentally altered the psychological dynamic of the room. He transformed it from a dictatorship into a consultation.
Nobody likes taking orders.
No, it threatens our autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody loves to be asked for their expertise. When you ask questions, you allow people to save face. You invite them to become architects of the solution.
And it worked. The team themselves generated the we can do it attitude. They figured out the logistics, they volunteered to adjust their schedules, and they delivered the impossible order on time.
Because it was their plan.
Exactly. They were infinitely more committed.
There's another brilliant case study in the text featuring Adolfo Seltz, an automotive sales manager. His team was disorganized, completely demoralized, and sales were plummeting.
So what was his approach?
He didn't call a meeting to yell at them or threaten their jobs. He did something incredibly vulnerable. He asked his team to tell him exactly what they expected from him as their manager.
Wow. And he stood at a chalkboard and wrote down every single demand they had, right?
Yes. He physically validated their needs.
That is so powerful.
Once they felt entirely heard, he flipped the dynamic. He said, I will give you all of these things you expect of me. Now, what do I have the right to expect from you?
Let me guess. The team themselves set the standards.
They did. They listed honesty, initiative, teamwork, and hard work. By letting the team set the standard, he didn't have to be a police officer enforcing rules. They enforced their own commitments because they had authored them.
And sales went up.
He saw a phenomenal increase in sales simply by letting the framework be their idea.
Okay, so this brings us to the most critical part of this deep dive. The theories are great, but it's 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, your inbox is overflowing, and your patience is thin.
Right. How do you actually use this stuff?
Exactly. What does this all mean for you, the listener, right now? How do you operationalize this? We've distilled the source material into a daily toolkit, 3 specific actionable habits for immediate impact. Let's tackle habit 1.
Habit 1 is the deliberate smile. Now, I know that sounds like a cheesy motivational poster from 1995.
It really does.
But the text frames a smile not as a polite pleasantry, but as a highly potent biological business tool. We have to look at the story of William B. Steinhardt, a New York stockbroker.
The self-confessed grump.
Exactly. For 18 years, he scowled his way through Wall Street and barely spoke to his own family.
He decided to treat smiling like a strategic experiment, though. He committed to smiling deliberately at his wife, the elevator operator, the subway clerks, and his colleagues on the trading floor.
The challenge here in the modern corporate environment is not coming across as sarcastic or, creepy.
Right. A deliberate smile doesn't mean a manic grin.
Exactly. It means approaching interactions with an expression that signals safety and openness, rather than stress and threat.
And Steinhardt found that when he altered his physical expression, people's defensive shields instantly dropped. Conflicts on the trading floor resolved faster.
Complaints were easier to handle.
He explicitly stated that this single, deliberate physical habit brought him more tangible wealth than any complex trading strategy he had ever tried.
Because your face transmits your attitude before you ever open your mouth.
It is the easiest, cheapest way to hack the room's energy. Okay, habit 2, the specific praise hunt.
We talked earlier about the danger of criticism.
Right. And to permanently replace it, you have to actively hunt for things to appreciate. But generic praise is almost worse than no praise. Saying, "Good job, team," on a Slack channel means absolutely nothing.
It feels automated. To make this work, you have to find one highly specific thing a colleague did right and praise them for it sincerely.
The friction here is that it is genuinely hard to praise someone you might find annoying or incompetent.
Because your brain naturally scans for threats and errors. You have to force it to scan for victories.
Instead of a generic thanks, you say, "The way you formatted the data on slide 4 saved me an hour of formatting work. I really appreciate that."
The specificity proves that you actually paid attention.
And when you consistently hunt for specific praise, you become a center of gravity in your workplace. People naturally gravitate toward environments where their efforts are recognized and validated.
Which leads perfectly into habit 3, the perspective pause.
This is the direct antidote to the Emerson-Caff problem.
It is. It is the habit of stopping your own momentum. Before you send an email asking a colleague for a favor, or before you assign a task to your team, force yourself to take your hands off the keyboard for 10 seconds.
The email autopilot is so dangerous. We just type, "Need the Q3 report by Friday, thanks."
Because you are only thinking about your deadline. The perspective pause asks you to look at that draft and ask, how can I make them want to do this?
Are you framing the request around your anxiety or their benefit?
Exactly. If you need a team to clean up a shared digital workspace, don't say clean the server because I'm tired of the mess. Frame it around them.
Point out that a streamlined server means they won't have to waste 20 minutes searching for assets while on a client call.
You have to translate your goals into their language.
It fundamentally changes the power dynamic. To synthesize everything we've explored today, rapid career success is not about isolating yourself and perfecting your technical skills.
Your technical skills are just the price of admission.
Mastering the 85% human engineering is the actual vehicle for advancement. It is about replacing ego-threatening criticism with specific appreciation.
Leading through empathetic questions rather than dictatorial orders.
And constantly aligning your objectives with the deep-seated desires of your team.
And to leave you with something to truly challenge your perspective tomorrow morning, I want to bring up one of the most provocative thought experiments from the source material. It involves the notorious gangster, Al Capone.
This completely rewired how I view office conflict.
The text argues a radical truth about human empathy. It states that if you had the exact same body, the exact same mind, the exact same childhood environment, and the exact same experiences as Al Capone,
Well, wait, you'd be him, right?
you would be exactly where he was doing exactly what he did. Because those specific genetics and those specific experiences are the only things that manufacture his worldview.
It's not about excusing terrible behavior. It's about understanding causality.
Exactly. Apply this to your own life. Think about that one person who drives you absolutely crazy at work, your most bitter workplace rival, or that impossibly demanding boss.
The one whose emails make your blood boil.
If you had their exact genetic makeup, their specific childhood insecurities, their current financial pressures, and their exact blind spots, you would likely be acting exactly as they are right now.
If you walked into the office tomorrow and completely accepted that as biological and psychological truth, how would it entirely upend the dynamic between the two of you?
It changes everything.
How much of your daily frustration would immediately transform into strategic understanding?
You stop seeing a villain that you have to defeat, and you start seeing a complex puzzle of human motivations that you can solve.
Technical skills will build the engine, but radical strategic empathy is the steering wheel that determines where you actually go. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Take these tools, practice the perspective pause, hunt for that specific praise, and start engineering your own fast track to leadership.